Pamela's First Musical by Wendy Wasserstein, illustrated by Andrew Jackness. Whoops. On Saturday morning, Pamela woke up extra early. "Today is my birthday," she said to her favorite dolls as she gathered them into her bed for a chat. "I'm 9, and 9 means a lot when you're 8. It means I'm almost 10, and 10 means I'm almost old enough to drive or be a movie star." "Well, if it was my birthday," Barbie said, tugging at her fuzzy pink negligee, "I'd wish that Ken would give me a new car, ruby earrings, and a mink skating outfit. What will you wish for, Pamela?" Pamela took a deep breath. "Well, first, I'd wish that on my birthday all wars would stop and all the children on Earth had enough food to eat forever." Lola, Pamela's dancing cat, waltzed around the room. "And then," continued Pamela, "I'd wish for an electronic magic diary, the easy-to-do creepy crawlers jewelry set, a winter princess Barbie, and I wish I get to see my Aunt Louise. My Aunt Louise is a perfectly perfect person. We always have a most splendiferous time." "Pamela, time for breakfast." Her father's voice interrupted the conversation. Immediately, Pamela leapt out of bed, put on her best party dress, and raced down the stairs so that her birthday could officially begin. As soon as Pamela came into the kitchen, her mother turned out the lights and everybody, including Lola, sang happy birthday. Then Pamela unwrapped an electronic magic diary from her father, a winter princess Barbie from her mother, and a 6-foot blow-up yellow stegosaurus that her brother Daniel had selected and secretly hoped he could keep for himself. "We also have a special surprise for you, Pamela," her mother smiled. "Today, Aunt Louise is going to take you to see a Broadway musical." "Yuck!" Daniel slammed down his orange juice. Daniel only liked really cool, scary movies with Halloween or Friday the 13th in the title. Just then, Aunt Louise pulled into the driveway in a red sports coupe. She honked the horn. "Ooh, darling, I'm here!" Aunt Louise said, "Ooh, darling," all the time. It drove Pamela's daddy bananas. Pamela jumped into the car and waved goodbye to her mother, her father, Daniel, and Lola. She was off to New York City with her favorite aunt to see a musical. All of Pamela's friends at school knew grown-ups who went into the city every day for work, but Pamela's Aunt Louise actually lived there. "Hello there, young lady." Nick, the doorman, tipped his hat to Pamela the moment she arrived at her aunt's apartment house. "Cold enough for you?" Pamela liked Nick. He was always friendly and knew all about the weather. Aunt Louise quickly changed out of her driving clothes into her theater clothes. She had a different outfit for every occasion. In fact, whenever Pamela visited, Aunt Louise would invite her to walk right into her closet and try on a few ensembles herself. Aunt Louise was the only grown-up Pamela knew who still played dress-up. But that was because Pamela's Aunt Louise was a very famous designer. You can tell whether Aunt Louise designed your blue jeans because they're all signed "Ooh, darling" on the back pocket. "You must try my latest creation," Aunt Louise said as she sprayed Pamela with perfume. "It's my new scent. I call it Pamela." While Pamela sniffed, Aunt Louise grabbed her hand. "Oh, darling, we have to leave right now for the Russian tea room. The tea room is simply the place to have lunch before your first musical." Aunt Louise knew the name of every restaurant host or maitre d'. "Alexei, please meet my niece." Louise introduced Pamela to a man wearing a fur hat and boots. "Dobry den, how do you do?" Alexei clicked his heels. "This way to your aunt's favorite booth. Today, you must try my apricot blini." Pamela wondered if Alexei wore his hat and boots at home and what a blini was. Just then, a dashing man came to their table and kissed Aunt Louise's hand. "Bear, this is my niece, Pamela." Aunt Louise was blushing. "Pamela, this is Berish Nurzinski, the world-famous dancer." "A pleasure." He did a grand tour-jeté leap all the way back to his table. The blini arrived. They were just like pancakes, and the tea came in a little glass with little cherries on the bottom. "Oh, darling," Aunt Louise said, looking at her wristwatch, "it's almost curtain time." Aunt Louise paid the bill, got their coats from the check room, and hailed a taxi, all in one breath. When Pamela first saw Broadway, it looked so exciting she thought she had made it all up. She was thrilled when her taxi stopped right in the middle of it all, directly in front of the 45th Street Theater. The lobby of the theater was full of all sorts of people. There were older couples and younger parents with children Pamela's age, pairs of nice-looking men, college girls and their friends, and ladies with puffy blue hair who all asked, "Which way to the powder room?" "Tickets, please." A woman in black shone a flashlight on their tickets. Pamela smiled at her. "This is my very first musical," she said. "Then, honey, this is one of the most important days of your life." The lady in black broke into an enormous grin. "My name is Gladys, and I've been an usher at the 45th Street Theater for over 50 years. I'd be very happy to personally escort you to your seats." Gladys walked Pamela and Aunt Louise down the center aisle to seats D2 and D4 and handed them a magazine. "You'll want this playbill so you can read all about the actors and the show." Gladys lit her flashlight. "But first, let me sign it. I always autograph for first musicals." Suddenly, all the chandeliers began to dim, and as the theater became darker and darker, Pamela's heart began to beat faster and faster. She hoped it was going to be good. She hoped it was going to be great. In the tiniest spot of light, a man in a tuxedo lifted a baton. He winked at Pamela while Aunt Louise whispered, "That's the orchestra conductor, and this is the overture." The red velvet curtain began to rise. At least 50 dancers in pink and yellow spangled dresses came spinning out onto the stage. They were followed by at least 50 men in top hats dancing with umbrellas. But there was one man named Billy who danced so well that everyone stopped to watch. Everyone except for a pretty blonde singer named Ginger. Ginger just couldn't help tapping her feet. Suddenly, Billy took Ginger's hand and they were dancing together as if they had been dancing together forever. Billy asked Ginger if she'd like to go to the circus. "You bet," Ginger smiled. Immediately, the lights changed, and now on stage was an entire circus. There were trapeze artists, clowns, a Ferris wheel, dancing cats, and a redheaded girl Pamela's age doing acrobatic tricks. Even though Pamela had always hated gymnastics, at that moment she knew she'd give anything to be that redheaded girl. When Billy asked Ginger if she'd like a soda, the entire circus turned around, and on the other side was a diner with a soda fountain and a very funny waitress named Cheetah.
"We got chocolate, double Dutch chocolate, and special for you kids, triple Dutch chocolate."
She smiled at them. Billy and Ginger shared a triple Dutch chocolate float and then waltzed around the diner as if it were a ballroom. They were falling in love. Pamela checked her playbill for the real names of the actors because she wanted to see every play they were in from now on. The actor who played Billy was Nathan Hines Clines, and Ginger was Mary Ethel Bernadette. Billy sang Pamela's favorite song from the overture as he strolled Ginger home from the diner. When he sang, he opened his mouth extra wide, and Pamela could see that he didn't have a single cavity. The lovers vowed to meet tomorrow and every other tomorrow. Moments after Billy and Ginger parted, however, he was stopped by soldiers. "War has been declared," the captain said, saluting Billy. "We must all leave early tomorrow to fight an undercover mission. You can tell no one." Pamela took a deep breath and put her finger over her mouth. "Don't worry." Aunt Louise took Pamela's hand. "This is a musical." The lights changed, and now everyone was on 42nd Street. The soldiers, dancers, the red-headed girl. There must have been at least 100 people. Well, maybe 50. Ginger came rushing on stage and asked if anybody had seen Billy.
"Honey, never trust a guy in trousers."
Cheetah, the funny waitress who was now wearing overalls, turned to Ginger.
"By the way, honey, you can always recognize me. I've got the fastest legs in town."
As Cheetah was demonstrating her very fastest, highest kicks, Billy marched right past them with his regiment. He didn't even wave goodbye. He couldn't. He'd been sworn to secrecy. Now Ginger and Billy, standing on opposite sides of the stage, sang the saddest song that Pamela had ever heard. Pamela felt a tingling in her entire body. Even Aunt Louise had to wipe away a few tears. And that's when the red curtain came down. That was the end of Act 1. Bravo! Bravo! Everyone in the audience was cheering. Aunt Louise, will they live happily ever after? Why does Cheetah never trust a guy in trousers? Pamela couldn't wait to have the answers to these questions. Aunt Louise smiled at Pamela. We'll find out in the second act. This is the intermission. Everyone in the lobby was talking. Pamela tried to listen to all of them. He was fabulous, said one man. She's extraordinary, said another. I laughed, I cried, said one puffy, blue-haired lady in a polka dot suit. A mean-looking man snickered. Well, Mary Ethel Bernadette's certainly no ingenue. Pamela stepped on the mean man's foot and turned to find Aunt Louise surrounded by some very interesting-looking people. Pamela, this is Mr. Bernie S. Jerry of the Bernie S. Jerry Producing Organization, Aunt Louise said. He got all the people and the money together so that you could see the show. Thank you. Pamela shook his hand. He looked nice, like her Uncle Dave. We're all here celebrating because last night we won 17 Tony Awards, including Best Musical Ever, Mr. Jerry explained. And these are my talented partners, Miss Margot Dandelion and Mr. Andre Cardinal, a shy guy with home run taste. What about me? I want to meet her too. A cuddly man in sneakers came bouncing over. I'm Mr. Finsicle. I made up all the songs. Remember, that's Finsicle, just like musical. And then he sang his favorite showstopper with Pamela. Would you like to meet the rest of our team? Mr. Jerry asked Pamela. This is Hal Heitner, our director. I tell everybody on stage what to do and when to do it, said Mr. Heitner, a charming Englishman with deep blue eyes and glasses high on his head. And this is Miss Tiny Latuna, the choreographer. I made up the dances, Miss Latuna said with a bow, but when she bowed, she was still twice as tall as Pamela. In fact, Pamela thought that Tiny Latuna was the tallest woman she had ever seen. And meet our famous book writers, Betty and Cy Sondheim, and their dogs, Roger and Hart. We've made up the stories for at least 20 musicals, said Betty Sondheim, a nice lady with perfect bangs. I think it's been 100 musicals. Mr. Sondheim laughed and showed his very white teeth. But there wouldn't be any musical without the designers, continued Mr. Jerry. Here are Boris Lee, who did the sets, Candida Ivy Zippers, who designed all the costumes, and Jules Gels, who created the lights. Mr. Gels was holding blue, red, and yellow-tinted cellophane strips. I put gels against a light so I can make the stage look stormy or bright. He waved them for Pamela. All right, everybody, say 17 Tony Awards! Aunt Louise took out her camera and snapped a photo. And just then, the end of intermission bells began to chime. Pamela ran down the aisle to get a quick look at the orchestra before the second act began. The lights went out completely and the orchestra began to play, and then the red curtain rose on Act 2. Ginger was teaching English to children on an island not far from Bali. When the oldest child asked her why she had traveled so far, Ginger explained, I have to forget somebody. And when I do forget him, I'll sail home on the ocean liner in the harbor. Pamela knew the somebody was Billy. Wow! Everyone in the theater gasped. The island and the ocean liner suddenly floated away, and onto the stage sailed a pirate ship. And by sheer coincidence, who should be on that ship but Billy and all the soldiers? At first, Pamela was relieved to see him. But then she realized that Billy was being held captive. Are you the prince everyone calls Billy? Scowled the Pirate King. Yes, I am Billy, the Prince of Broadway. The Pirate King scowled again. It's your choice, Prince Billy. I challenge you to a dance to the death, or I destroy you and all your men. Billy began dancing for his life. It was the most exciting dance Pamela had ever seen. She thought Nathan Hines Clines deserved at least 17 more Tony Awards. Then an airplane flew down from the top of the stage. And who should be the pilot? Cheetah, in goggles and aviatrix overalls. And who should be the co-pilots? The 50 tapping girls. They rescued Billy, and all the soldiers sank the cargo boat and flew away. Billy thanked his new pal Cheetah, and they sang a real peppy friendship song. Pamela loved this song and tried to memorize it. Here's the chorus.
I'm your friend through and through, loyal as the red, white, and blue, a constant buddy, a pal, a chum. If I've a cake, you'll never eat a crumb.
To tell the truth, Pamela wrote that last line herself. But the song did go something like that. Is Billy now going to fall in love with Cheetah? Pamela asked Louise. Now the lights on stage began to go purple, pink, and blue. The war was over, and everyone was celebrating in a nightclub. Aunt Louise shook her head up and down. Great costumes! She nudged Pamela. Oh, darling, that Candida Ivy Zippers is really talented. And I adore those pink and yellow lights. That Jules can really use his gels. Suddenly, Ginger walked through the nightclub curtains, sat down on a stool, and began to sing a beautiful song about courage. At the end of it, Billy came swinging in on a chandelier and asked Ginger if she could ever forgive him. He had to defend his country. Ginger married Prince Billy with 50 tapping bridesmaids, 50 leaping men, the trapeze artists, the dancing cats, Cheetah and her fastest legs, and a reprise of Pamela's favorite song. Then the red velvet curtain came down. Bravo! Bravissimo! The entire audience was on its feet, applauding. It's a standing ovation, just as I'd hoped. Aunt Louise was just thrilled that Pamela's first musical had gone so well. Would you like to go backstage and meet Mary Ethel Bernadette? Aunt Louise asked Pamela as they walked up the aisle. You know her? Oh, darling, Aunt Louise grinned. I make her blue jeans. There was so much activity backstage that Pamela didn't know where to look. There was one man running up and down with wigs, a woman with piles of laundry, and Nathan Hines Clines in his undershirt. A very thin man in blue jeans and a jeans jacket nodded at Aunt Louise. Mary Ethel Bernadette's dressing room is at the end of the hall. Then he took Pamela's hand. I'm Harrison Roy, the stage manager. My job is to make certain everything runs smoothly backstage. Oh, darling, you were marvelous! Aunt Louise embraced Mary Ethel Bernadette. The only place Pamela had seen as many flowers as she saw in Mary Ethel Bernadette's dressing room was at the Botanical Gardens. At first, Pamela didn't know what to say. Then she whispered, This was my first musical, and I loved it. Thank you. Mary Ethel Bernadette hugged Pamela very tight. That's the nicest thing anyone could say. As they were leaving the theater, the old stage doorman waved to Pamela to come stand on stage in the empty house. This is the ghost light, he explained. This means the theater always stays lit for all the people who ever performed here. It also means you can come back any time. There's the ghost light. That night, Pamela gathered all her dolls and the yellow stegosaurus onto her bed. Now you'll be Mary Ethel Bernadette, and you'll be Nathan Hines Clines, and I'll be other parts. Lola, the dancing cat, jumped on the bed. Lola, you can be everybody else and, of course, all the cats. Pamela put her electronic magic diary on the bed. It was now a stage. Pamela slowly dimmed the lights and then lifted a pencil and struck up the orchestra. That night, when her mother and father came in to check on her, they thought that Pamela had fallen asleep, but they were wrong. She wasn't asleep. Pamela was producing, writing, choreographing, designing, and directing hundreds of dancing girls, parades of tapping men, Mary Ethel Bernadette, Nathan Hines Clines, Barish Nurozhinsky, Aunt Louise, the taxi driver, and a cast of thousands, maybe millions. And as the red velvet curtain fell, Pamela took a bow in the greatest, biggest, most splendiferous musical ever.